So in 2 weeks, it will mark 1 year of me being in Dallas, which is honestly insane. But I figured since I'm coming up on a year living in Dallas, I would give you my honest opinion of how the last 12 months have been, pros, cons to it, because I definitely have some thoughts about it, and not all negative, not all positive. And I figured I would just make a helpful video because Texas in general is becoming a very popular place for people to move. It's like a very hot spot right now. If you didn't know, it is. And if you're considering moving to Dallas, then I wanted to put together like a small list of topics that I can cover, or honestly just really any questions that you want to be asking yourself before you move to a new city. Granted, I have been here only 12 months, which means that a lot of this is going to be very subjective, honestly, to my specific experience, but I feel like some things I can just say in a more objective way. So I figured that today I would cover things like the cost of living, which of course is super important whenever you're moving, then things like culture and people, as well as things like neighborhoods, safety, general feel of areas, jobs and opportunities, which I probably should have listed a little bit sooner, but whatever. And then also things like more lifestyle related and activities. I don't want to use this word, but like the vibe of Dallas in a way. I've talked about this briefly on my channel before, but I will try to mention as much as I can about the dating scene here, because I'm sure people are curious about that as well. But I just will give you a heads up that I don't have that much to say about it, but I will give you my 2 cents, don't worry. To start off with the cost of living, Dallas in general and Texas in general is a very affordable place to be. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, I live in a 670 square foot apartment and I pay $1,300 a month. It's a little less than I was paying in Philadelphia, and I have a lot more space. Everything is bigger in Texas, and that is very much true. There is so much land, there's so much space. I'm not really at a point in my life where I'm looking to buy a house or anything or buy property, but just by doing a really quick search, you can find basically a McMansion in Texas for a fraction of the price that you would find it in a state that costs a lot more to live in. So there's like small things where you're gonna be paying the same price as anywhere in a city really, but places like restaurants and bars or whatever, clubs and things like that are a lot cheaper. For example, I went to New York to visit my friend, and we went to a rooftop bar, which I get it, it's a rooftop in New York with a beautiful view, understandable. I paid $22 for a cup of rosé. A cup, and I'm talking a cup, which is like, it was literally this big. It was like the size of like the urine samples you have at the doctors, that of not even that good rosé. That's something you could get like for $5 in Texas. Yeah, there's just some things that I can't justify spending that much money on anymore, which is why I appreciate how inexpensive it is in Texas. Nationwide, gas prices have been like insane lately, but when my friend first moved here a couple months right before the pandemic, and she was paying, I'm pretty sure she said $2.50 per gallon, which is nothing. Last point that I want to make in terms of cost of living is that Texas is becoming a hotspot for people, especially cities like Austin. Plano is getting really big. Dallas, Fort Worth area, like metropolitan area, is very big as well, which of course, as you can imagine, the more people come in, the higher prices rise. So I'm making this video in 2022. If by the time you're watching this and it's, I don't know when, just keep in mind that prices might start to be competing with places in like the East Coast. So, but in terms of culture and people and the general like vibe of Dallas, one thing I just want to say off the bat is that I know that people think about like ranches and tumbleweed and hillbillies with no teeth. That's not what Texas is like. Not all of it, at least. A lot of Texas is, and generally speaking, when you're not in a city, that's probably what you're gonna find. And I've been avoiding going to any of those places. I feel like it's one of those experiences where I could live the rest of my life without having a hillbilly Texas experience. So the way that Dallas is set up is completely different than a lot of cities that I'm used to. And I think this goes for most Texas cities. Picture if you've been to Philadelphia or New York or even like LA, Chicago. When you go downtown or center city, if you're in Philly, you can kind of find like everything there. Downtown area or the center city area is where you can like go to do stuff, right? Dallas is not like that. Downtown is primarily business oriented, and it's like primarily like a business district. So you go downtown to work, but outside of working hours, it is ghost town. Like ghost town. And that was a lot for me to get used to, because I keep mentioning Philadelphia just because that's the city I can compare it the best to. In Philly, you can just kind of walk into center city and you have everything there. You can grocery shop there, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a museum, you can go to a bar, there's parks there, there's ice cream shops, and there's also work there. So it's all kind of a jumbled together, and that was ideal for me because I'm like, I can just go to work, and then after work I can stay there and go to happy hour and all that. Dallas does not work that way. Like Dallas downtown is where I work, and then there's specific neighborhoods outside of downtown where that's primarily where like the things happen. So that was a really big adjustment for me, because I feel like the whole point of a city is to have that kind of hustle bustle a little bit, and Dallas is not like that. Now there are things like sky rises, and there's a lot of really beautiful architecture, but generally there is something that feels like it's missing a little bit. Like it feels a little ghost towny when you go to specific places, because you're like expecting there to be a lot of people and then there's nothing or no one there. When I had first moved to Dallas, people who had been living here for some time started to call Dallas uppity, and I didn't know what that meant, but basically uppity means like self-important or arrogant. I don't want to be rude, but I feel like I just need to spill a little tea. But I feel like Dallas is kind of getting a lot of those Cali, LA influencers moving here into their sky rises and driving up prices of the entire city and kind of like driving around in their Beamers type of thing. I think that's what they mean by uppity. But some people love that, right? Like some people are looking exactly for that kind of like luxury wealth type of thing. And I think a lot of Dallas is transforming into that. Believe it or not, there's parts of Dallas that are super, super wealthy, which was a very shocking thing to me to find out. The point I wanted to make with that is that if you were looking for a type of city that kind of has everything in one place, Dallas is not it. Which leads me to my next point of like transportation and mobility. You're gonna need a car in Dallas. Like Dallas is not a place where you can just like, oh, I'm just gonna bike to the museum and then after that I'm gonna bike to the grocery store. You can, but like I'm sending my full prayers to you, because there's like hardly any places for people to bike around here, so you're probably gonna be biking with like insane Texas drivers, and I do not recommend you doing that. The public transportation here is kind of subpar, to be honest. I mean, there's buses that drive around and there's like kind of a little train type of system, but generally you more than likely are gonna need to have a car. A little less about Dallas specifically and a little bit more about the people. So like I mentioned, some people feel like it's getting uppity. I can't say that Dallas is as diverse as somewhere like New York, for example. I feel like Dallas doesn't feel like it's dominated by one type of demographic in a way. There's a really, really huge Hispanic influence here, and I think there is also a very strong sense of that like Southern Black culture. Houston had the most like real Black and proud type of Southern feel to it, but Dallas has it as well, a lot more than Austin, at least I would say. I do want to say this though, and this is where kind of it's my specific experience, so I don't want to say that this is 100% fact. It's just something I've noticed that kind of not weirded me out, but kind of made me think about this a little bit. I've noticed that when I go to specific neighborhoods or specific places, like I know who I'm gonna see there. Like there are some neighborhoods that are like specifically, you tend to see more white people there. And then there's other neighborhoods where you specifically only see like Hispanic people there, and then same thing for Black communities. And I'm not saying that it's not integrated, but there's places like Deep Ellum, for example, which is a really like poppin' neighborhood where there is 3 main streets of a lot of different restaurants, a lot of different little shops, cafes and bars and bowling alleys and stuff like that. There is one of the places where you tend to see a lot more of that integration, and there's kind of people from everywhere. But at the same time, because crime rates are actually increasing, which is something I'm going to talk about a little bit later, it seems like there's specific types of people that like avoid it now because it's not safe, meaning the more wealthy people are like, no, that's a bad place, so you should never frequent it. And I think one thing that Dallas really taught me that I realized I was kind of part of the problem a little bit is that when you think about Texas as a whole, you probably have like really negative perceptions of it, right? Like uneducated, again, racist, hillbillies, gun carrying, buck hunting, whatever. And a lot of that is very true. But one thing I noticed about once I moved here is that there are so many Hispanic communities and Hispanic people who are so proud of the fact that they come from here, and they have a very strong tie to Texas and the influence that they have on this place. And same thing with Black communities. And I think it's getting a little more popularized thanks to artists like Megan Thee Stallion or Beyonce, who are both from Houston and very proud of it. I'm not saying that I'm trying to change the perspective that people have about Texas, but I just wanted to say that it's really important to not just over stereotype everyone, because there are genuinely deep like Black Southern roots, even when it comes to music and food and again, the culture. I'm like, beating a dead horse right now, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's just a lot of non-white communities that are actually genuinely really proud of being from here. I think that's a pretty good segue into talking about like neighborhoods and safety and things like that. I have really only been here like a few months, but there have been a few neighborhoods that I visited that I feel like I have a general sense of how they feel. And I do want to put up a little list of neighborhoods that I know that I feel like are really nice that you may want to consider if you are going to be moving to Dallas. Like Deep Ellum, Bishop Arts District, Lower Greenville, Uptown, White Rock Lake area. And again, like I mentioned, these are just my specific experiences. According to some statistics and like crime reports, it looks like the crime is increasing quite a bit in Deep Ellum. So I think that's why some people are getting a little bit paranoid by it, but it is a super fun place to be if you're looking to just have a really fun night out, because it kind of has everything there. Uptown is nice because it's somewhere where you actually have like sidewalks and places to walk and do things. For example, I get my nails done in Uptown. All my like cosmetic related things are in Uptown. And then there's places like Bishop Arts District, which it's a little more like artsy and a little more hipster type of vibe to it. But I love Bishop Arts District. It's one of my favorite places actually, because it's cute and quaint. They have really amazing food there. It's kind of where people go to do, like, they take yoga classes there and dance classes there, and it kind of has like that feel to it. There's like fancy little boutiques and cute little shops there. So that's like one of my favorite neighborhoods to go to. Lower Greenville is also really nice. Lower Greenville is kind of like this strip of, again, little shops and stores, restaurants, bars. It's where I go to do grocery shopping. And as you go in the Lower Greenville area, a little bit north of that area of Dallas is a little more different in that it looks like there's actually like sidewalks and like places to walk your kids and things like that. It looks like very family friendly, so that's something to put on your radar. And then White Rock Lake is also really nice. That's actually where Erykah Badu lives, if you didn't know. She is from Dallas. She's very proud of being from Dallas. Some people still see her around and you know, being her quirky self. I have yet to see her, unfortunately. I have not yet, but anyway, that's that. I'm just gonna be fully honest. There was a shooting in my complex, like literally in the parking lot when I first moved here. There have been honestly a handful of shootings in nearing neighborhoods. I haven't really run into issues myself where I feel like I was really unsafe. Also, another thing, again, when you're in a city, this tends to happen, but the homelessness problem is, it's kind of visible, honestly. Like depending on where you're driving or which neighborhoods you're in, you're gonna see less or more of it. But that is something that you see around Dallas, especially in downtown. Like I mentioned, downtown, you're really only working there, but it's not really like upkept per se. Yeah, the homelessness rate is honestly kind of high. All right, so I'll try to speed this up, but in terms of like opportunities and jobs, I just did a little bit of research. I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is more like research oriented, and I really like recommend you do your own research in terms of like what industry you're trying to go into. But based off doing a little bit of research, here's like the main type of industries and the job market that Dallas offers. It is things like construction and building design, food manufacturing, IT services, logistics, media, telecommunications, instruments, okay, and company headquarters, and then transportation, manufacturing, and assembly. So if any of those industries are ones that are specific to you, what you're looking for, then you're probably gonna find some luck in Dallas. Also, after doing a little bit of research, it seems that the job market is actually really, really good in Dallas. It's getting ranked pretty high in terms of new opportunities for people, because again, a lot of companies are moving here, a lot of tech-oriented oil companies. So, okay, we're coming to the end. I've been yapping for so long. Thanks for being here if you're still here. Let's wrap up the video by talking about like just general lifestyle and activities and things like that. And this is kind of where I'm gonna spill the tea a little bit, just because this is the biggest area that I have like issues with when it comes to Dallas. I'm going to be honest. If you're coming from a place that has like mountains and beaches and lakes and paddle boarding and snowboarding and skiing and jumping in waterfalls and the beauty and the earth and the greenery, don't move to Dallas. Do not move here because you are going to hate it. Dallas is very flat and it is very concretey. A really brief overview. My original destination in Texas was Austin last year in early 2021. Unfortunately, I was applying to a bunch of jobs there and I didn't find one. So I decided to stay with my company that I was with in Philly, and they had an office in Dallas. So I was like, perfect, I just need to be in Texas. So I'll just move to Dallas, stay with my company until I can get on my feet and figure out what I want to do from there. The reason I loved Austin so much, and I really hate to compare this to Austin because it's not an Austin video, but there's so much more greenery and so much more nature related things in Austin. The thing is, like, some people are not that way and they don't really care about that stuff and are not super outdoorsy. So Dallas works for them, but it's not working for me. I feel like I can't really walk anywhere. Like I can walk to the farmer's market in Deep Ellum, for example. I can technically walk to get my groceries at like Tom Thumbs or something, but I feel kind of constricted a little bit. It's a little inconvenient. There are, maybe you follow influencers in Dallas who spend a lot of time outside. Maybe they're doing outdoor yoga at White Rock Lake and they spend a lot of time biking around the lake and the trails and all that, and that's great. But unless you live specifically near those trails, you're just gonna find concrete. Now, like I mentioned, there are trails. So there's the Katy Trail that's really beautiful, and I always go skating there. I can go running there. You can go for a walk. Like, it's very family friendly. It's really beautiful, and it has a nice little like Katy Trail ice shop, I think it's called, or something like that, where you can get some, you know, some beers and some food. Places like White Rock Lake are really beautiful as well. Super quiet, near, you know, an actual lake, but it's like you can't jump in the lake. You're never gonna see someone swimming in there, basically. I hate to mention Philly again, but I was just so used to being able to walk places that I don't have to overcompensate the fact that I'm like have now a sedentary life, right? Like, that's kind of how my life is in Dallas now. It's very like kind of sit on your ass most of the time, unless you're enrolled in like a gym or yoga, bar class, whatever. Unless you're enrolled in one of those things and you also work out, most of the time you're gonna be driving places. And I love driving, I genuinely do, and it's really nice having a car. But there's also like, I like having the option of like, okay, I want to either drive today or I want to walk. But the thing is, some people like that. Like, some people prefer to stay more indoors, right? Like, they're not super outdoorsy, and they prefer to maybe just like get dressed really nicely and go out. And that's the thing about Dallas, though, I will say, people dress to the T. Like, people dress to impress here. I've noticed that like every demographic here like dresses to the T if they need to, right? If they're going out to the bar and stuff, like expect women to be in stilettos, in their nicest dress. Same thing with men, dressed very fresh and nice. Sometimes they even got the cowboy hat. Yeah, I mean, they're dressed to impress. So that's my advice. If you're a super outdoorsy person, I don't think you would like Dallas. I've had this conversation with some of my friends and they were like, that's not true, it's just because you're not going out of your way. And I'm like, that's the thing. I want to be able to walk out of my house and just walk. Like, I don't need to be driving 20 minutes to go walk, like that, you know? Anyways, so I really hope this has been helpful so far. To wrap up, let's talk about dating a little bit. I'm sorry, I really wish I had the juicy tea. I don't. My personal dating experience in Dallas was not good. I was really going out of my way to meet people. When I first moved here, I was going out a lot. I was going to the pool, hoping to meet people around my complex, and I did. But as you can probably imagine, the more you get comfortable in a place and the more you start to get settled down, your effort starts to like decrease a little bit, which is maybe what happened with me. I decided to download dating apps, and after 2 months, I realized it wasn't for me. But again, that's a personal experience because I never liked dating apps to begin with. That was the first time I had ever downloaded an app. I thought like, maybe, who knows, I could meet someone nice on here, maybe even make friends or something. Did not work out for me. There was no experience that was really like horrible that I had, although some of the profiles I saw on there were very questionable and a little scary. I didn't have a ton in common with men in Dallas, to be honest. Like, I went on 2 dates and they were both nice, you know, like nothing necessarily wrong with it. I just would prefer, if I'm looking for something a little more long term, I'm looking to have someone who's like on the same page as me, which I just didn't find that. I'm not like a dating person. It's not like fun for me necessarily. Okay, I feel like I'm restricting and I'm holding back, and I'm just gonna be fully honest. I just don't want to fucking waste my time. I'm sorry. I know what I like, and I know who I am, and I know what I want. And until like I attract those type of people and that type of person, I just don't want to waste my time. You know what? Let me try to be helpful. There was a lot of attractive guys on the apps. A lot of them with good jobs, nice cars, if you're into that. A lot of them moved from different places, so not all of them were from Dallas. So a lot of people were from California. A decent amount of people from the East Coast as well, but yeah, I mean, you might get lucky with dating. I didn't, but you might. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Okay, the lighting is getting pretty bad in here, so let me wrap it up. In my eyes, any move is always worth it. Now, again, there are questions you have to ask yourself, like, can you afford living there? Think about safety, think about cost, think about all the things that I mentioned. But at the same time, if you have the ability to go somewhere else, just go experience something new. I mean, I just feel very privileged to be able to do these things, so I want to take advantage of them. The grass is not always greener. That's something that I really learned, and that everywhere you go is gonna have pros and cons, and some places are gonna be better than others, and some are gonna be worse than others. And part of life is really just experiencing those things and experimenting and finding what you like and discovering yourself and just living it up. That is my update on living in Dallas for about a year now. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.